This is Keep On Cooking, a podcast for people who love cookbooks and want to know more about the authors. It's also a great place to get a weekly dose of culinary inspiration to keep things pumping in the kitchen. So grab a cookbook and keep on cooking. I'm Dustin Harder, and this is Keep On Cooking. Hello, and welcome to Keep On Cooking, the only podcast dedicated to plant-based cookbooks. I'm Dustin Harder, and I'm here with the one and only Adam Sobel of Cinnamon Snail. Welcome back to the show, Adam.
Oh, I'm back, Mommy. Let's do it. How do you do?
How do you do? I do well. And listen, everyone, Adam is here because for the first time we are re-releasing an episode. Adam was here previously to chat about his wonderful cookbook, Street Vegan Recipes and Dispatches from the Cinnamon Snail Food Truck. And we decided to re-release this episode, dear listeners, because, and Adam, I don't know if you know this, it is our most downloaded episode.
I did not know that.
Exciting,
what are
right?
people doing? Why are they doing that to themselves?
They're getting an earful. Well, first thing I want to chat about, Adam, is Galactic Mega Stallion. So can you share the details about this pop-up you've created for our listeners? And listeners, we're just going to talk about a few things Adam has going on. A lot has happened since we released the episode. So before we get into the book, Adam, tell us about Galactic Mega Stallion.
It's only beef and bologna. That's it. It's a big change. Ta-da! I changed up the whole thing. It's just only bologna. No, actually, there is very little bologna served at Galactic Mega Stallion. And what it is when the pandemic hit, I had some nice quiet time to reflect on what I did and also did not want to be doing professionally and with vegan food. And so in many ways, it's a very extreme departure from things I've done in the past, and also like kind of an experiment in hospitality and food service that I thought would be fun. And it is fun. And it's not just fun for me. It's also fun for the people who get to eat the food, because it's, first of all, the deal with it is that every year I give it a completely different theme and style that I like create as the confines to which I'm going to riff on. And, so like this past season was like Malaysian and Indonesian street food dishes. The previous year was all like Turkish and Middle Eastern inspired dishes. And then the fun thing about it for me is that every single week, when we do the pop-up, it's a 100% different menu, like riffing within the confines of that style, which I find like I really enjoy the creative restriction of staying within that theme for the season, but also like really delving deep into the nuances of that style of cuisine. And then the other thing that's is sort of weird about it is that it's in when I launched it, it had like no online presence at all. And what I was doing was sending people on this like dastardly Zodiac killer flavored scavenger hunt, where I was like illegally putting up these billboards all around New Jersey that the only thing that was legible on them was this hotline phone number. And if you called the number, I used to do like audio engineering before I got into food service. So I made this like really fucked up like witness protection program, like creepy sounding voice that gave you this like cipher that you could use to decode the billboard, which would send you to a website that would get you to like GPS coordinates. Like it was real crazy. But anyway, some people actually did do that thing.
Sure.
And then some people also just stumbled upon it because I really liked the idea of having this thing that was like so outside the rules of modern, not just hospitality, but like food service marketing. I find like a lot of the like norms now about food businesses having to like hype themselves up on social media, it feels very disingenuous to me. Like it feels like you're being your own hype man or something.
Sure,
And
sure.
and that was one of the things I just decided I didn't wanna do. Like, I feel like it's contributing to this culture where food is really, like, objectified and treated in this very, like, pornographic kind of way. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look, I like a drippy looking picture of some bullshit just as much
Sure,
as the next
sure.
fella. But I just felt like, man, if this food's gonna be good enough to speak for itself and, like, travel by genuine word of mouth, it not only is more honest feeling, but it really frees me up to focus on the thing that matters, which is like the actual food and making it very
Yeah.
exciting. And, like I couldn't come up with a 100% different menu for that every week if I was focusing on all these like silly things to hype it up. And, so yeah, that's basically the, like, short elevator pitch of it. I wrote a whole long thingy about it that if you wanna know all of my weird musings about it, you can read, but it's long. So, that's the short.
Well, listen, I read it and I love it. And listeners, we're going to put the link in the show notes for you to check out so you can read all the details. What I really love about that article too is you also touch on, when Cinnamon Snail, when you had the locations for it and sort of the demise of it and why you made the choice and everything going on. And it's just interesting to get that side of everything. I think the general public does not understand how difficult and all of the things that come with owning a food business. There's so many
For
things.
real. Let me tell you, the thing for me that's most difficult is being a boss to other humans. It's, like, really not in my nature, and
Sure.
that was one of the things that, like, when I was able to step back during the pandemic, I was like, "There's gotta be a way for me to help people stop eating animals without
Yeah.
giving myself the stress of being, like, a manager instead of
Yep.
a chef or whatever I
Yeah.
am," So yeah, that was very, very liberating. And I do this pop-up thing. It's like just me and my younger daughter. It's really like a nice
Which I
bonding moment.
love. That's
It's
so
super
great.
sweet. This past year, last year I had taken her on like a surprise trip to London, just the two of us, and we
Nice.
ate all the really good things there. And then this season, when it was starting, she was like, "Dad, I want to take like the tips money that people give at the cart this year and just save it all, and we'll like do another trip, just the two of us sometime." So we have like a few grand saved up, and we're gonna go like to Greece or somewhere she wants to go. So it's gonna be nice.
That's cool. What
Yeah,
a what a nice bonus that comes
yeah,
along with
it's
that. So
it's
lovely.
super sweet. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Everybody, we'll put the link in show notes for you to read more details about that if you want to. And listeners, if you are a cook who wants to confidently make impressive restaurant quality plant-based food at home, Adam has created a program. This program is about to change your life, is what it's about to do. Okay, it is Adam Sobel's Vegan University. It's a monthly subscription that already has had over 3,000 students. What does someone get when they sign up for Vegan University?
Ooh. First of all, what you get with that program is a lot of support from like the whole community of people all around the world, that's like really the most fun part of it. It's such a sweet platform where cooks from all around kind of connect over food, and I might share a recipe, and like one of our students in Hawaii will make it with like vanilla beans that they grew in their backyard, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll share about
Cool.
how they're, like how they grow vanilla and whatever. But I mean, it's a huge library of courses I created on like every conceivable topic in vegan cooking. And then every month I teach like a live streamed class in that program on different topics. Like this weekend we're doing one on Italian pastry arts. Next month we're doing kind of like a deep dive in different tofu preparations. And it's really a nice way to collectively be raising the bar about vegan food. Really, like the ultimate goal of it is beyond just us all becoming better vegan cooks. It's really about thinking about vegan cooking from a standpoint of animal rights activism and
Mm-hmm.
how, by people getting more confident to share food that will turn people they love on in their life to eating vegan, you can conceivably save many an animal. And that's always been like the driving force behind the things I dedicate my time to, and that's really like the underlying point of that program, is not just to like get good at cooking for the sake of being good at cooking, but to get good
Hmm.
at cooking to see tangible real world change in our culture. And that's kind of the whole goal of that program.
We'll have the link for everyone in show notes, of course, for Vegan University. And last, before we get into your episode, it's about to be January, which means
Yeah,
Veganuary is
that's
just
right.
around the corner. What do you have in store for Veganuary?
Well, I've been doing a Veganuary program for quite a few years now, and it was like a pretty big undertaking when I started doing it because, I share different recipes every single day. There's a live cooking class that people can take as part of the program. And this year I decided to make it completely like pay whatever you want to take it. I used to charge like $78 to take it because it is quite a lot of work to orchestrate. And this year I'm like, you know what? This is really primarily like I always feel like Veganuary is for like the vegan curious people more than it is like the people who are going to commit to cooking a vegan Thanksgiving and they're like ready to go,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And so like a lot of things, I feel like you have to provide value for people who don't even recognize how valuable the thing is,
Hmm.
and if I
Hmm.
make it accessible to more and more people, it just helps serve more people who are like vegan curious. And that's really my goal, um is not just to like preach to the choir. I really intend to help a lot of people, transition to a vegan diet. So that's why I'm doing that.
Well, everybody, you can get links for more information on Galactic Mega Stallion,
Bam!
Vegan University, and
Bam!
Veganuary in the show
Bam!
notes. And of course, Adam didn't want to leave you hanging today, so he's
Oh,
hooking
no.
you up with his falafel cooking class for free. So after you listen to this episode, be sure to click the link in the show notes so you can turn your kitchen into the best falafel place in town with Adam's help. Adam, thank you so much for being here today. Now, everybody get excited. Back by popular demand, it's
Oh!
the encore release of Street Vegan Recipes and Dispatches from the Cinnamon Snail Food Truck, featuring an interview with the one and only Adam Sobel.
Get ready.
From food truck to food superstar and a little bit of everything in between, it's the founder of the beloved Cinnamon Snail and author of today's book, Street Vegan, the wild wizard himself. Please welcome to the podcast, Adam Sobel. Thank you for taking the time to chat today, Adam.
Yes, it's the highlight of my week.
Yes. Oh, I love hearing that.
it.
Well, it's fantastic to see your face, and we're going to dive right in on the icebreaker question.
Okay.
If you could have a superhero power, what would the superhero power be, and what would you do with it?
So I would get this superhero power where, like, if I raise one arm up, like just like a big gaggle, like let's say like 100,000 ponies would just enter into the vicinity, and they would all do like a very perfectly harmonized rap in unison.
Yeah.
And it would be like to be honest, it'd be like one of these superpowers that's kind of also a curse because you're like always by accident, like raising one arm to go grab something off the shelf, and then
And then suddenly you've got a chorus of unicorns.
yeah. So that's kind of the plan. It's going to be like a gaggle of pony zone with superpower.
That would bring a lot of joy to the world. Mine's pretty selfish. I would fly just because I live in Atlanta now and I want to avoid traffic. So that's
like way more practical. I should have thought about it. Like, what's your superpower? Oh, it's to go on a vacation to Bali. That's what it is. I
still like it. I'm here for the ponies. Well, I mean, honestly, as I said mine, I was like, gosh, I'm not like flying to save the planet. So really, I'm just flying for my own selfish needs. Hey, we all have desires when it comes to superhero powers. So there we have it.
And not all superheroes wear capes, Dustin.
That's
sometimes
exactly
you just
right.
gotta commute,
Well, listeners, if you don't know, the Cinnamon Snail was a banging food truck that literally had lines around the block in New York City. It also had standalone locations as well. Adam has cooked at the James Beard House, represented the USA at the World Street Food Congress in the Philippines. The Cinnamon Snail won the coveted Vendy Award a few times, I believe, right?
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah, it wasn't just once. You were just snatching trophies. Well, so and that award for everybody, the Vendy Award is like the Oscars of street food. Cinnamon Snail was featured on the Food Network, front page of the New York Times Dining Out section, and a bunch of other cool places, and received a ton of other accolades you should check out on the website at cinnamonsnail.com. Now, I know we don't have the food truck or the locations anymore, thanks to a little something called the pandemic, y'all. But you still offer your services. So tell listeners what you're still offering via Cinnamon Snail these days.
Yeah, so I've been doing like a lot of consulting work for other people's food businesses. I was doing it before the pandemic too, but this really like was a good opportunity. There were a lot of people opening up or planning to open up different types of food businesses, whether it was like food manufacturing or restaurants or catering. So I create recipes for a lot of other people's stuff, which I love because it's like the fun, creative side of my job with none of the like, horrendous being a boss to 60 people side of my job. I'm not that big a fan of. And then other than that, I've been teaching like monthly online vegan cooking classes, which has been really nice. You know, like I used to teach at a couple different culinary schools periodically, and it was not like very good money for me. And for the students, like they had to pay quite a lot for those classes. And these classes are like way, way more affordable, like maybe a third or a quarter of the price.
Nice.
To the students, and like I make decent money at it. Like I'm just about paying my bills with it, which is nice.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Like I get to do it from home. Like we have like a lot of animals who live in my house. We have like a wallaby we rescued, and I'll like hop through the cooking class. It's kind of wacky. I've been doing that, and I've actually been planning some new small food business I'm going to be launching this summer, but I can't.
That's exciting
about it.
Can't tell us yet. Well, we will keep our eyes peeled. We'll for classes and stuff. Can everybody see what's available over? I saw a bunch of stuff posted on the Cinnamon Snail Instagram. Is that the best place to look for it?
I'll promote it through our social media, but I have like an Eventbrite page that people can purchase classes through. And
awesome.
Some months I've been doing like a donation-based one where you can like pay like almost nothing if you want, like $1 or something. It's, I think what Eventbrite makes their minimum. And it's nice. Like those are usually like a shorter class, and people can pay whatever they want for it. And it's kind of like makes it very accessible for a lot of people to learn.
How many people do you usually have in a class? Like what's your maximum amount that you have?
I mean, I can keep on expanding my Zoom account, but I think like the most I can have right now is about 300 students in a class.
Okay.
I think the most I've had yet was like just under 200 in one of my classes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. It's been really nice to like reconnect with, there's people who like used to get Cinnamon Snail and moved to the other side of the world, and they can take the class, and it's just been nice to like reconnect with people and like share some of the stuff I've figured out about cooking with people.
That's so cool. Everyone listening, I took a class with Adam, I think at ICE many years ago before I even went to culinary school. And it was one of the first vegan classes I took. I think it was a breakfast class.
I remember that one.
Yeah. And it was great. Adam's tons of fun, full of all the knowledge. So everybody go check out the Cinnamon Snail Instagram and see what his upcoming classes are. So make sure you don't miss any of them there, because there's different ones. That's the thing, everybody. I looked at it and there's all these different categories, which is so cool. It's not just
like
a basic
we'll do like
vegan
different topics
class.
every month. Yeah,
that's really nice.
I think this next one in April, we're doing like a vegan donut making workshop, which we're pretty psyched about.
I saw that. Have you done a class online with that yet? With the donut?
I haven't done an online one. Like I've done ones in culinary schools with that.
Okay.
But this class is actually going to be really designed for people to make like with home equipment. Like you're not going to need like a stand mixer or, you know, a donut fryer and stuff like that people won't actually have in their home. So it's really designed to be like practical and useful for people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good. Everybody go take the donut class. I've got a multi-question for you next to start us out before we dive into the book. Can we get a little glimpse into where you grew up, how cooking was part of your life, and then how veganism came into it?
Sure,
and then, of course, how that ventured into Cinnamon Snail becoming the Cinnamon Snail.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. My parents are literary agents, and my mom, like, especially agents like a lot of cookbook authors. And so growing up, there were always like people coming to test recipes in our home kitchen. And especially like Yamuna Devi, who one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada in the Hare Krishna movement, would come, and like, you know, all her food was vegetarian and stuff. And
was your family vegetarian?
No, they weren't, and they're still super not vegetarian.
Wow. So was that one of your first sort of introductions into vegetables? Cooking with vegetables?
I mean, my parents like tended to cook like more naturally.
Okay.
To begin with, but I didn't really like know or give a crap about like vegetarianism until probably like I met who's now my wife, Joey. When I was like a teenager. She was like the first vegan person who I got really close to. And I just remember being like, wow, like this makes so much sense. Like, more like morally, it makes a lot of sense. But like, I was kind of like this very anarchist minded kid, and just felt like a decision like that felt like it would in some way like limit my freedom or something like that is how I thought about it at the time. And then over time, like I just found myself agreeing with it more and more. And like, you know, I was started like cooking a bunch of vegan food, mostly because Joey, when I met her, she was like living on French fries and canned soup. And I was like, man, I gotta learn how to cook vegan food so I can make super yummy, like nourishing food for this girl I like.
Yes.
And so it really like got me cooking and got me like starting to even work in restaurants. And then like the first restaurant I was working at, which was not a vegetarian or vegan restaurant, I just like kept on finding myself having to like stand up to the other cooks about like vegetarians who would come into the restaurant and would like try to modify something to make it veg or vegan. And finally somebody was like, Adam, like if you believe in that so much, like why aren't you vegetarian? You know, and I was like, yeah, like good point. Like I do, you know, it's not like a limitation of my freedom. Like, you know, like I have the freedom to go like attack and maul some human in the street too right now. I just don't want to do it.
Right.
Same like, you know, I don't want to like eat animals because it's just not nice. It's, you know, so.
But so there was a time when you were telling people about eating with vegetables when you were not vegetarian yet? You were like,
no, I just like I respected the decision, but like hadn't made that decision.
Yeah.
You know, and then like about a year later, we were having our first daughter. I was like 19. And I just remember like when my wife was in labor, like I was thinking so much about how like nursing was going to be very important for our child, both like physically and emotionally and spiritually, and just felt like, you know, it's so like hypocritical to like recognize the value of that for my own child, but somehow like interfere in that process for some other living entity. And so, yeah, that day that my daughter was born, I just made the decision to like stop eating dairy and stuff. And yeah, I never turned back. My daughter's like almost 21 years old now. And
amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
And
so
when
that's kind of how I got into like eating vegan food and cooking vegan food and stuff.
And when did Cinnamon Snail come out of this then? When was that born?
So Cinnamon Snail, I'd been like working at this one vegan restaurant in New Jersey that like changed hands and pretty abruptly was like run into the ground and went out of business by like the new owners who kind of didn't really know what they were doing. And I had been working there like off the books for 5 years or something.
Yeah.
Kind of typical in the restaurant world.
Sure.
And it was like the same week that we were like buying a house. And like, so all of a sudden, like all my livelihood had been like it was literally like I came into work and they were like, oh yeah, we're closing today. That's it.
Gosh.
So I had to figure out like, how am I gonna like pay a mortgage? What am I gonna do? So I started like doing some like private cooking and catering and stuff. And we did like a little stand at the farmers market in Red Bank. I forget if it was just one summer or 2 summers we did it like as a stand, and saved up enough money to buy like the absolutely most wretched beat up food truck on all of Craigslist. Um, which like, when we took it for a test drive, like literally the entire exhaust system fell off the truck and they were like, yeah, we'll take off $100. And I was like,
Oh
cool,
my gosh.
what a deal. So
that's great.
So yeah, then like in 2010, it finally like hit the streets after I did a bunch of work on it and turned it into what it, started out as. And yeah, it just like evolved a lot. Like I always wanted to do a vegan food truck. Like I always had this idea of like making vegan food less like stigmatized and making it so that like people would just see like this dope looking display case full of donuts and pastries and like a line of people and be like, oh, this looks cool. And it was kind of before like the food truck trend really like blew up too. So there was no like resources for me to figure out like how to do anything or what permits to get or whatever. And I didn't really I super didn't have like any type of business plan or trajectory in mind. I was just like, this will be cool. And then like it blew up and it grew and grew and grew. And like, it was wildly more successful than I ever like dreamed or set out to do. But, like in a way that like lack of planning ended up not being great for it. Like I never really I just kept on saying yes to every like cool opportunity that came my way. And then like in retrospect, now that I closed it down at the beginning of the pandemic, like I don't want to do that anymore. Like I want to figure out, or like I know now like what I do want to do and what I don't want to do.
Yep.
And it's not like important for me to do everything you can possibly do with food. Like I just want to do a few things with food and do them really, really well. And yeah.
I love that. That's sort of, I mean, I guess that's just like growth. As we evolve as human beings, you sort of get to a place where you're like, okay, I did that. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I said yes to a lot. Now I'm going to exercise saying no to the things that I know are not going to like bring me total joy,
and there's certain things that like, aside from whether I want to do it or not, like I can also recognize there's certain things that like I'm really good at and certain things that I'm not that great at. And
totally.
So it's been like a good learning experience for me.
Yeah, I'm interested. So many people have a misconception about running and owning and operating a food truck. I feel like a lot of people think it's so easy. Just roll up your truck with a bunch of food, And I know, of course, that's not true. And as awesome as the truck was and successful and had such an impact, because it really did, I never minded waiting in line for it at all. That's for sure. And when you see the line, you're like, oh, I want to go there because there's a line. What's going on? But could you maybe clue our listeners in on some of the like pitfalls that come with this? Is to educate everyone.
Yeah. So actually, this is like a big part of what this cookbook, Street Vegan, is about. Because it's not, this book is like not all recipes. There's a lot of storytelling in it.
Yes.
Of like what it was like running a food truck at that time. And having worked in restaurants for a while before doing it, I can tell you like it's got every problem that restaurants deal with, plus like a gazillion other problems that are like specific to food trucks. Like in a restaurant, for instance, like if there's some issue, you get the issue fixed and like you remain open, But with a food truck, like first of all, there's a million other issues. Like restaurants don't have like breaks and parking lights and all these other things that end up making it spend a day in the shop. And then when it spends a day in the shop, you're like not serving anybody. And it's hard to retain your staff because the hours aren't consistent for them.
Yeah.
And then there's like just a million issues, especially in New York City, with like obtaining the permits and licenses you need. Like essentially in New York, there's like no other way other than to get it through like this very sketchy black market. And
Crazy.
and yeah, it's just how it is. It's not like the city is aware of it, but it's kind of like a difficult political problem.
Yeah.
It can't just be solved so easily.
So many pitfalls there, but do you ever miss it?
I miss getting to cook for like the general public a lot.
Yeah.
But there's not a second that I miss running.
I understand. Yeah, like I figured.
I did love it. But man, like when the pandemic hit and I was like, oh, I can like spend all day recipe testing different samosa recipes and snuggling with my dog. Man, like after a few weeks of that, I was like, man, I really had like PTSD from running this business for like 12 years of like every different type of catastrophe happening 24 hours a day.
Gosh.
Because it became like a 24/7 business. Like, because of the nature of our menu, I had developed like this whole like baking program. And so there's like an overnight crew who would like come in and make all our donuts and pastries. And then like early in the morning, we had people stocking, and during the day there'd be people prepping, and the truck would be out and our restaurants would be open. And so like literally 24 hours a day, like my phone, like if I wasn't at the kitchen, my phone would be blowing up with like every kind of imaginable issue. Like you could, so yeah, I don't really miss that. That's like, and I also like recognize that when it started, like it was super, I mean, not to be like boastful about it, but it like was kind of revolutionary at the time.
Sure. No, it definitely was
being served. And I feel like things evolved a lot in the vegan scene over the last decade where, like there's other people now making vegan donuts, and there's other people now making very flavorful burgers and sandwiches and stuff like that. Kind of like what I was doing, like now there's other people doing it, and like I can figure out some other things I'd like to do with vegan food, and like figure out a way to execute it in a way that's like less punishing for me personally. So yeah, I don't really like miss that.
Yeah, I get that. So everyone listening too, next time you're thinking about opening a food truck, come back and listen to this little snippet in this episode, and maybe you'll think twice. I think there's a story in the book too. I mean, several great stories, and one that's coming to mind though is where I think your generator went out and you had to take the truck to Queens to get another generator, but then you lost your parking space by the time you got back. So like, I mean, things that.
It sounds likely. Like I don't.
You're like sounds like a typical week. Like, yes.
There was like always some nonsense like that going on.
Oh, well, we're almost about to get into the book, but before I do, one more question. Do you remember what your first vegan cookbook was that you owned, someone else's book?
Yeah, because it's a killer cookbook, and you got to definitely feature at least one of her books on your
I love this.
But you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, now I'm like second guessing, because I think there were some others that I had. Like there were some of the really old school ones. I had that like Chef Neil's little pamphlet. Hold on, I might even have.
Oh, I love it. Show me, please.
Hold on a second. Dude, this is an old school one.
Like no pictures.
Look at this. Look at this.
Chef Neil's International Vegetarian Cookbook.
Look how like.
I mean, my goodness, is there a year on there, Adam?
I mean, this is definitely like some old school style. I mean, this is only from 1995. It's not the oldest vegan cookbook by any means, but like this is really good, and we keep it because there's actually like a really good stuffed tofu loaf recipe in it.
And that's like a nice little like take along book.
Is super like was one that we used to mess with. There was the New Farm cookbook, obviously, which is that old school one, and then PETA had like a old vegan cookbook. I forget what it was called, but yeah, those were like the earlier ones. But I'll tell you, the one that like really got me, that I was like, this is a good cookbook, and I really respect her like immensely as a cookbook author, is Robin Robertson's Vegan Planet. Dude, she is a beast. Like, and she, in my mind, she's like an extremely underappreciated vegan cookbook author. Her recipes, like, very consistently work well, which is more than a lot of cookbooks can say. Like there's a lot of cookbooks where like half of the recipes don't work. Her recipes work really well, are simple as well. Like a lot of them have like less than 12 ingredients in them. And she is extremely gifted with like combining ingredients in a creative way that you would just like not think of, like in a not gimmicky way either. They're just like wonderful, combinations of ingredients. I really like respect her a lot. And she has a few cookbooks. That Vegan Planet one is like gigantic. There's like 1,000.
She has so many, and a lot of guests on this podcast cite her. One of her books as like
that's
a
really
first
good to hear, because I always
had.
feel like she's not one I hear getting talked about that much. Like, there's like sort of a handful of like celebrity vegan cookbook authors that like everybody drops their name all the time. And some of those cookbook authors, like I don't love their cookbooks.
Sure.
And in fact, like you can see behind me, these are all some of my cookbooks back behind me.
I mean,
and let me tell you, like
it's a collection.
It's a tiny amount of those that are vegan cookbooks, because truthfully,
really?
A lot of them, there's a lot of vegan cookbooks that don't reliably work well, in my opinion. And most of these cookbooks are, like classical pastry cookbooks that we veganize the recipes from and stuff like that. And I find it a lot more inspiring and a lot more reliable. Like
Miyoko Shinner, when she was on here, she was talking, the first books that she sort of learned from were like meat cookbooks. And she had never eaten meat, but she was talking about the spicing of meats and everything with her last meat cookbook, and she was talking about that. So I think it's a great place for people to go to learn techniques and traditional things and how they started, and to start building recipes from that. It's a great place.
I do draw the line. Like I'm not trying to look at pictures of like cooked up hams and stuff.
Also,
like that either.
Also that.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of my deal. But yeah, a lot of like the vegan cookbooks also that I like personally are like some of the raw foods cookbooks. Really, like I really love eating that way. At least like part of my diet. So there's some goodies.
I hound Robin Robertson maybe 2-3 times a year. We have emails going back and forth with me begging her to. So like she kind of keeps a low profile on purpose. But every few months I'll follow up and be like, "Hey, are you ready? Do you want to be on?" Another person said your book was their first, and she'll either answer and be like, "Oh, maybe no time."
I've written to her before just to like tell her how much I appreciate what she. Really like. She has some really exceptional cookbooks, and I recommend them all the time to like, because a lot of my recipes are like annoyingly complicated, to be honest. Like my style of cooking is fairly like complex, and there's a lot of people who are like, hey, I love eating your food, but I don't have time to make that at home. And I'm always like, check out Robin Robertson. Her recipes are like easy to do, and they're really like brilliant. And a
good place for people to start too with Robin Robertson, if you want a place to start, is she has 1,000 vegan recipes cookbook. But yeah, it's if I can't get her on one day, maybe I'll do a tribute episode and
we can do a thing where I'll just pretend to be her, and I'll be like,
I love it.
My superpower.
Superpower. Your superpower is channeling Robin Robertson.
That's what perfect. It is. I hope.
I love it. Well, let's get into your outstanding book, Street Vegan: Recipes and Dispatches from the Cinnamon Snail Truck.
Do it.
Now, what's so awesome about this book, everyone, is if you love the cinnamon snail, this book is full of flavors Adam has served up daily, from mouthwatering sandwiches to the most creative and flavor-packed donuts. So now you can have cinnamon snail in your own home. The intro gives us a nice look into how you stock your pantry appropriately for success. You give a glimpse into, vegan mayonnaise, seitan, toasted sesame oil, and egg replacers, and what cooks need in their home to cook with the best of them with this book, essentially. Breakfast starts us off, and it starts off with a bang with items like maple mustard breakfast seitan strips, bourbon hazelnut pancakes, beer battered French toast. Y'all heard me correctly. Shredded root vegetable hash browns, and the poached pear stuffed French toast. The picture of this looks amazing in here. I have to try it. What's a must-have breakfast item for you in this chapter,
All
Adam?
right. So the thing that I'm actually really like psyched about in this chapter is there's these fresh fig pancakes that we used to serve on the truck like in the fall during like the height of fig season. And it's kind of like a good working plain pancake batter as the base, but then like when you put the pancake batter on the grill, then you add like fresh slices of fig to the pancakes. So when you flip them, those get like all caramelized and crunchy on the outside on the grill. And then it gets served with pine nut butter and this like chamomile blood orange syrup. And it's really super nice. That was like one of the things I guess I started making like a few years in on the food truck, like about every October or so when the figs would be super nice. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm real pumped about in that chapter. Yeah.
I love it.
There's also like kasha and onion fried blintzes, which is a recipe that I used to make like with my grandma a lot growing up. She made like a lot of Eastern European food like that. And yeah, that was like actually probably one of my like early memories of like learning to cook with an adult. Like she was really particular. Like if you tried to use like the spatula to flip them, she'd like slap your hand. You gotta just use the fingers and flip it. And yeah, I have really like fond memories of like hanging out with and cooking with my grandma. And so I mean obviously her recipe for it wasn't vegan, but this was like a veganized version of that thing I grew up eating.
Yeah. You dedicate the book to her, don't you? If I'm
correct. Yeah, actually you're right.
Yeah.
Dedicated to my grandma. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. We've got the beverages chapter next, and it's fun. It's categorized by nut milks, milkshakes, lemonades, and agua frescas, and hot beverages. There's a toasted hazelnut hot chocolate in here and a peppermint hot chocolate. I feel like I have memories of getting hot chocolate from the truck. Was it either one of these or was it a different one, or were these maybe there at some point?
So yeah, I would change it up a little bit on the truck. And the other thing I would do sometimes on the truck was like hot chai, but like a really nice hot chai. And especially like when we would have like, you know, we used to do these like catered Thanksgiving things where people could like pre-order like a whole Thanksgiving dinner, like either for themselves or for their whole family, which got nuts. Like it was like this is an example of like one of these things that like I should have just stopped doing that when it started being like 1,000 people ordering Thanksgiving dinner. Like it was such a crazy, like, you know, literally we would have to start planning it like 7 or 8 months in advance. Like where we're going to like order the refrigerated trucks from and how we're going to like plan the prep days, you know, it was just so crazy to organize. But anyway, in the beginning, I used to make like different hot beverages like that to like just give out to the people who are like waiting online for their order.
So good.
Because it was like, for some reason, it would like always be super frigid on Thanksgiving.
Of course.
So yeah, but yeah, in this chapter, the thing that I was really pumped about was just having a bunch of really solid and interesting nut milk recipes. Because, you know, I find that like a lot of like kind of mainstream vegans who don't have any like inclination to consume much raw food don't really know about making nut milk at home. And it's like so much cheaper. You can like customize it and flavor it in so many interesting ways that like you can't obtain at the store. It doesn't involve non-biodegradable packaging. You know, most nut milks still like come in those like Tetra packs and whatever that can't be recycled and are not biodegradable. And so I threw like a few in here that I really love and I still like have all the time. Like we always have the vanilla Brazil nut milk in our house, and it's so refreshing, like on a hot day. And like, I never wanted to drink like regular dairy milk by the glass, and I definitely never wanted to drink like glasses of soy milk by the glass. But man, these nut milks are like banging, and it's just nice to have in your repertoire. Like you can make them to like use in your own cooking, or you know, and they're easy. Like it's like not really much more difficult than making a smoothie, but it just really expands like the quality of what you're doing a little bit.
They're so not basic, everybody. We're talking vanilla sesame milk, coconut star anise milk, pistachio milk, and chamomile pine nut milk. There's also milkshakes. We've got the supreme raw fudge brownie milkshake and the creamy strawberry pink drink. And when we look at the lemonade and agua fresca section, what are a couple drinks in that section that are fun to serve maybe to like guests? What's sure to please the crowd in the lemonades and agua frescas?
So first of all, that pink drink is like my jam, and
tell us about it.
Drink that like once or twice a week. Like it's such a nice like after yoga or working out kind of recovery drink.
What's in it?
It's creamy, like there's some cashews and frozen strawberries and coconut butter and stuff. But then
Delicious.
like you also pulse in like cacao nibs, and it's almost got like this like strawberry quick type of vibe, but it's like not made out of garbage, and it's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a honeydew and mint agua fresca in this chapter, and there's also this strawberry Thai basil lemonade.
Delicious.
That we would sell that on the truck sometimes, and yeah, that's really good. I love fruit and Thai basil very much.
Yes, so good. I think my guest would be happy if I served those. Speaking of entertaining guests with delicious items, that leads us into the appetizers chapter with offerings like pan-fried kimchi dumplings, polenta sage cashew cheese wedges, flaky spinach pie, and chimichurri tempeh empanadas. When we think of crowd pleasers again, what are a couple recipes from this chapter that are tried and true that you know will go great with a crowd of people?
Yeah, so one of the things that I started doing before I had the truck, and then like I really got deeply into when I was running the Cinnamon Snail, was like catering weddings, right? And it's like the ultimate example of a time where like usually the bride and groom might be the only people vegan, or maybe a small number of their friends, and then like a large portion of the guests you're trying to like turn them on to vegan food, right? And
sure,
a lot of them, they're like not open-minded at all. There's like always some like uncle who makes some comment like, no matter how good the food is, it's like, I'm going to McDonald's or whatever, right? So my like strategy for weddings was always to make food that was like, first of all, not weird, like, and not like stuff that you needed to do a whole lot of like explaining to talk somebody into like thinking about that it would be good, but making stuff that was just like delicious and just happened to be vegan, rather than like it's some like fake meat rendition of some classic, right? So an example of that in this chapter is there's these like flaky spinach pies that have like garlic and capers and stuff in them, and it's just like a phyllo dough style appetizer, and they're easy to make, and they're like always such a crowd pleaser, especially when you're serving people who don't necessarily give a crap about vegan food, because it's just like it's yummy, and it's not like, but where's the ham inside of this? It's just like happens to be vegan, and it's good. So yeah, things like that I think it's just really like important to have in your repertoire as a cook, because I mean, for me, like my whole motivation with cooking for like the public, I mean, it's nice to cook for people who are already vegan, but I really like my target person is someone who like hates vegan food. Like I want to get them like super excited and show them like it doesn't have to like suck, it doesn't have to like limit what you can eat. So the way to do that is to make it approachable. Like it shouldn't be like, not to say you can't get creative with it, but it shouldn't be like A, weird, or B, like this like stereotype vegan food of like either like fake meat everything, or the flip side of that, which is like the brown rice and steamed vegetables.
Here's your macro plate. Yes.
Whatever. So yeah, like I always like crafted the food for the Cinnamon Snail to be sort of a balance of those, where it was like flavorful and nourishing and exciting, but like at the same time, like not made out of garbage that would like make you feel horrible. So
well, you succeeded in that. I took many a non-vegan to Cinnamon Snail, and they walked away very pleased.
Oh, good.
Well done.
Here.
Our next chapter is the always comforting soups chapter. I love me some soup, and I have post-it notes on several in here. What are a couple of your favorite soups from this chapter to cozy up to when it gets cold?
All right. So I'm always making some kind of rendition of like the Thai coconut curry soup that's in this chapter. And it's just really easy to like turn into different kinds of meals. Like if you tweak it a little bit differently, like you could always like add noodles to it or do it without the chickpeas in it and like add fried tofu to it.
Nice.
And it's kind of just like a nice versatile soup to have um in your repertoire. And then there's like a jalapeno corn chowder in this chapter as well, which, you know, like I grew up eating such sucky corn chowder that it wasn't like a very hard, like, first of all, it's not about using like frozen or canned corn ever.
Sure.
That's the half of the battle. If you just use fresh, delicious, good corn, that'll do it. But
That's true.
having some kind of pizzazz in the
Sure.
bone is important. And yeah, jalapenos are kind of, I think, pair really nicely with the corn. So yeah, that's a real good one, I think.
Yeah, you got a little bit of spice and then a little bit of sweet mild from the corn there. It's good. Tasty, tasty. Some other ones in this chapter are the maple butternut squash soup, wild mushroom, spinach and potato soup, red wine minestrone, cheesy broccoli beer soup, hello, and Korean kimchi soup. I love it.
Yep.
And this next chapter excited me the most when I got this book. It's the sandwiches chapter. To me, the Cinnamon Snail was all about what sandwich and what donut I was going to get when I was standing in line.
It wasn't always that way, though. And I was like telling some people in one of my cooking classes about this recently, that in like the early days of the Cinnamon Snail, there was like a few sandwiches available.
Sure.
It was mostly these like really wacky entrees, like not wacky in the sense of like bizarre, but they were like super, like, my background had been more in like fine dining type of restaurant work. And so I had these like kind of fancy, like stacked up entrees, like beautifully plated and stuff. And it was like cool.
But then you would put them in a to-go box?
Yeah, it was like, here's this fancy thing. Go eat it on like a paper plate in your lap. And it was so like not practical. And so after like a year, I was like, I gotta like make this make more sense. And like, especially because so many of the people were getting the food like on their lunch break and like
Sure.
they eat it in a hurry. So that's why like a lot of the sandwiches that I came to serve on the food truck were kind of like almost like entrees between two pieces of bread. Like I would always like have many different like textures and flavors and condiments and stuff that would it was like almost like getting an entree between two slices of bread. So yeah, that's kind of like how the style of sandwich making evolved on the food truck out of that.
That's interesting that it started where it did and ended up where it was. But I guess that went in line with the food truck journey. So yeah, it makes sense. All said and done, it evolved properly. Well, I, of course, was a huge fan of the popular, tell me if I say it right, gochujang?
Yeah.
The gochujang burger deluxe with pickled spiced vegetables and the gochujang on top of the juicy seitan burger. I loved it. I was in heaven. That, and I think it was the beast mode. Wasn't that like mac and cheese and a burger?
That came after this book came out, though. I'm always getting emails from people like, I'm pissed. I bought the beast mode burger. Why didn't you go back in time and kill John Connor and make it in the book now? But yeah, it came out like I actually started serving that probably around the time that this book came out, but like the book was already written and edited.
Sure. What you gonna do? Yeah. Well, what's another sandwich from the truck that made its way into this book that was a popular
the
one?
lemongrass 5-spice seitan for sure. And that was like one of the ones that I was like kind of like the gochujang burger, like kind of like, I guess, a little proud of like how it came together. And
Sure.
It was like a little bit of had different Asian influences that I really liked, like coming together. So like that one has these curried cashews that are kind of like based on this style of cashews that they serve in India, like To be honest, they usually serve it at places where people like drink alcohol because they're like salty and spicy and it keeps people
Right.
drinking. But um, normally they're like very have like a lot of asafoetida and like kind of black salt and chilies and stuff on it. So anyway, I made these like kind of roasted cashews that were seasoned up like that, and then the seitan gets cooked in this like marinade that has lemongrass and Chinese five spice and some plum vinegar, and then like it goes on like a grilled baguette that there's some wasabi mayo and greens, and then like once all that stuff is on the bread, then there's this like Szechuan chili sauce that goes on the top of it, and it's just they go together really well, like even though they're kind of like from varied backgrounds, like there's a kind of Japanese, Chinese, Thai and Indian influence on it, but like they're all like they work in a very complimentary way in this sandwich.
And it sounds like it's got some kick too, right?
Yeah, but not like I don't think like crazy kick. I mean,
No, listen.
I guess it's subjective, but you know, we were traveling at one time in like Turkey, and it was like so not veg friendly throughout a lot of Turkey,
Yeah.
at least when we were there. And they have this like flaky, like baguette style bread there called ekmek. And everywhere we would go, we would just get like a fresh loaf of that bread. And then we would like stop at like markets and get these like pickled hot peppers. And we would put it on the bread with like a little olive oil and parsley. And the first time I had one, I was like, dude, this is so spicy. Like, I cannot eat this. And then, like, a week into our time in Turkey, I was like, all right, let me get one more sandwich with that peppers.
Yes.
It kind of like blew me out a little bit, I guess, with my tolerance. But I don't find, personally, I don't find like any of these to be terribly spicy. But
sure.
Yeah, some are more spicy than others.
Yeah, like you said, it's subjective. One of the things I like about your food, or always have, is that to me it's not so much a spice factor. It's a more of a flavorful factor to me with the stuff that you use.
I mean that was the other thing. Like I also like one of the things I wanted to kind of rebel against, like when I started making my own food with the Cinnamon Snail, as opposed to working in other people's vegan restaurants. I felt like a lot of vegan restaurants had been like sort of intimidated into making their food rather bland, like because there was always like this like undercurrent of complainy vegan restaurant patrons.
Yeah.
And
I think that's still a thing, but we don't need to go there. Yeah.
But I was just like, dude, if I'm gonna like show people who are not vegan that vegan food like has some balls and is like really like as tasty or tastier than the food they're already eating, like I don't want to like dial it back on anything because of like the 1 out of 200 people who's gonna be like mad because it has flavor or something. That's just not my customer, like I want to make food that's like super bold and exciting and like isn't just trying to like half-ass it. So that's kind of like I would say one of the like themes of my food in general, like at least that I did with the Cinnamon Snail.
Yeah, I say mission accomplished. And listeners, I want you to attack this chapter when you get the book with items like the Peking seitan bao bun, Korean barbecue seitan, sage tempeh and sausage sliders, and the Thai barbecue seitan ribs. You will become sandwich royalty in your home, making these for your loved ones and your housemates. And we're moving on to the main event. Let's get into the Cinnamains chapter, featuring items like rosemary hemp seed crusted tofu, jalapeno roasted corn stuffed red quinoa croquettes, live Szechuan string bean ramen, and galangal pea pancakes. It is a creative variation with so many choices for the home cook here, really. So for someone who just buys the book, and they open up to the Cinnamains because it's the mains chapter, what's an item you would tell them to make first from the Cinnamains chapter?
So this like ginger island tofu recipe that's in here was an entree that I was actually serving on the food truck in that like year or so before I figured out that I needed to start like actually serving sandwiches more than entree. And it's just dope. Like there's these coconut mashed yams and fried ginger on it, and it's a pretty like impressive dinner to serve somebody like if you're a home cook. And it's not, I don't find it's like very hard or time consuming either. It's something you could like conceivably throw together, including clean up like within an hour. And
Nice.
yeah, that's a really nice one. I mean, what is not what I would recommend first to somebody necessarily from this chapter, but I love is there's like a bunch of different raw pizza recipes also in this chapter. And man, like again, like I really like eating some raw food. And we used to serve raw pizza on the food truck for at least 5 years or something. And also like at the time a lot of the like raw foods restaurants that would serve like some variation of pizza, like it'd be yummy, but it was like some pizza-ish bullshit on top of like a raw
Yeah.
cracker. And, and I had been doing like, before I had the food truck, I was doing like private chefing for people, and there was this one guy who would get raw food meals from me who was making this raw pizza kind of similar to this one. But the thing that like blew my mind about it was that it was like thick and like a regular slice of pizza.
Sure.
Like it was not some like dry sun-dried tomato,
Right.
Sahara desert salt.
Any raw pizza I've ever made is what you're speaking of right now. Whenever I open a book, that's all what it is.
And the recipes for raw pizza in this cookbook, I gotta say, are like banging. Like I still make these and like raw pizzas similar to this all the time, and they're so satisfying, and like to have that with a salad is just like a great, really nice lunch.
Yeah.
I stopped serving it on the truck because I came to the realization there were times when like random people would come to the food truck who were like not even vegan, and they would get that. And I kept feeling like, man, is this going to be like somebody's first experience of vegan food, that it's like this pizza thing? And so I eventually took it off just to like ensure that I could steer like people new to vegan food to stuff that like I knew would like blow their mind, and not like stigmatize vegan food in any way for them. But it's like something I want to eat all the time.
Yeah, I hear you. I love raw pizza too. And you clearly have a love of kimchi, and you have actually made me a fan of it. I wasn't before I started eating your food, but I do enjoy it now. And in the veggies and sides chapter, you give us a nice sort of how-to on kimchi, which I'm so grateful for. You also have a simple marinated kale, raw maple miso Brussels sprouts, lemon garlic Swiss chard, and horseradish mashed potatoes. Now, this is when you know, everyone, that it's a chef's cookbook.
Yeah.
Because he's given you some horseradish mashed potatoes. Come through with the horseradish mash. I'm here for it. Adam, what's a side you like to serve from here, or someone that might serve for like a holiday gathering? Do any of these fit the bill for that?
Yeah, definitely. So this marinated kale recipe in here is very versatile, and it's in a lot of the stuff that we used to serve on the food truck, because my whole like plan was like, I want to make you eat something very yummy, but I also want to like trick you into eating some like nourishing, dark leafy greens as well. And this like way to prepare it, they're just really like tender, like it's almost like eating cooked kale, but they're just way more nutritious for you. And so it's a really versatile side that goes like on a Thanksgiving table and is really nice to balance, like Thanksgiving, for instance, or Christmas. Like they're both holidays where people are like tend to eat very heavy food, and especially like vegan Thanksgivings have the tendency, if you're not careful, to just be like super carby as well.
Sure.
So have some like minimally cooked or totally raw, like nourishing dark leafy greens thing in the mix, like kind of balances it out really nicely nutritionally. And it, this recipe for it, it's got olive oil and thyme and black pepper and umeboshi plum vinegar. That brightness of the umeboshi plum vinegar just like makes it taste so alive. And just contrasts like heavily cooked things that you might pair with the raw kale very, very well. The mashed potatoes recipe in this book, while it is really good, I've started making my mashed potatoes differently over the years since I've written this book, and I really like what I do with it now. One of the cooking classes I taught over this past year was like a vegan Thanksgiving class, and I went like super in depth about different ways you can make mashed potatoes. But what I have been messing with is, first of all, like definitely like peeling and rinsing your potatoes and using a potato like a russet potato, not something that's waxy. And then after they're cooked, like again, rinsing them under hot running water to like remove extra starch. And then rather than mashing it, I've really become a fan of running them through a food mill, which like really leaves them fluffy. And because it's really easy, both mashing or like, God forbid, you throw it in a food processor to end up with like kind of gloopy potatoes.
Like, yeah,
that's dumb. No,
yeah.
you're gonna have a fluffy party. And so if you don't have like a potato ricer, I think the food mill's like you can kind of do bigger batches more easily.
Yeah.
I always find like when I'm making mashed potatoes, I'm making mashed potatoes for like 20 guests. So
right,
you want to make it easy for yourself. But yeah, that's
for sure.
Like really good. Kind of.
Well, that's sort of how you're preparing them. I'm interested in your new variations since horseradish is a bold flavor. What's another flavor you've paired with the mashed potato?
Like there's kind of a lot of different things you can do. Like roasted garlic is, obviously a thing a lot of people do. The other thing that's kind of nice, not so much as a flavor, but as like a texture thing to the mashed potatoes, is using a little bit of like vegan cream cheese in the mix. And it really like makes it kind of rich. And there's, like a little bit of acidity and sweetness from it that like you can't really pinpoint in the final product.
Yeah.
But makes it a little bit richer. But yeah, there's all different kinds of stuff you could do, put
nice little subtle elevation
oil in it or whatever. There's lots of things you can do.
Do you have a sweet tooth is my question for you.
So I have a weird sweet tooth. I have a sweet tooth where like I'm kind of like into extreme anything, to be honest. Like I'm gonna listen to like dark music. I don't want to listen to like some like radio level heavy metal. Like I want to listen to some like mega like satanic death metal, like super horrorcore digital hardcore. Like I want to go to like the extreme. If I want to listen to like peaceful music, it's gonna be like the droniest, put you to sleep. So similarly with desserts, like the desserts I really like a lot are like kind of like stuff like halva and stuff where it's like sugar. But yeah, I don't so much have like a normal person sweet tooth. Like I love like stuff like smoothies and stuff like that. But
explain me, what was the one you just said that you do like?
Halva. Yeah.
What is that exactly?
Well, there's a bunch of different like variations of halva, but what I'm talking about is like the more like Mediterranean and Middle East.
Is it the tahini?
Yeah, it's like
where it's almost like fudge, right?
Yeah, but it's like all sesame paste and sugar.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is really good. I went to a store that specialized in that in Amsterdam, and they just had all these different flavors of it, and they had a huge vegan section of it. It was amazing.
I love it. Yeah. It's funny though, like both with the desserts, and of course there's also like a whole like donut making chapter in this book. Donuts, like I always kind of looked at it and my wife really like pioneered us making donuts in the first place.
Really?
The perspective was always like, we want to make like the gateway drug that's going to attract people to vegan. Like what are we going to make that's like not already like played out that people were already making? Because at the time, like cupcakes were kind of trendy, but like really there was like hardly any vegan donuts on the whole East Coast of the United States when we started. Like I think Dunwell started after us by a couple of years, and there really wasn't much at all. Vegan Treats did like a couple vegan donuts, but for people in New York, like Vegan Treats was dropping off there like once a week, and donuts are not something you want to eat like made 5 days ago at all.
That you want it like the day of.
Yeah, so that was like the desserts and donuts were definitely like, how are we gonna lure people into eating vegan food who like don't give a crap about vegan food? So yeah, that's why like, it's kind of atypical actually, like with the Cinnamon Snail versus a lot of other food businesses. There's a lot of other food businesses like they specialize in doing lunch or dinner or whatever. And like
Sure.
they have a couple token dessert things, but like you can tell it's not like their focus, like
Right.
this was like really a focus to us, like having like a huge variety of different desserts and donuts. Cause if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it like all the way and have 30
Yeah.
varieties and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's part of your extreme personality, right?
That's it. That's it.
I mean, this book is no slouch in the sweets arena, which is why I was curious, like, do you have a sweet tooth? When we go, and everyone, it is split, there is a dessert section and a donut chapter, so 2 separate chapters.
Yeah.
There had to be, there was no other way. Now, if you were to hang up the phone with me right now and go make a dessert from the dessert chapter, which dessert would you go to?
Oh, no question. It's the pumpkin chiffon pie. No question. It's like
Amazing.
It's something that my mom used to make growing up. And pumpkin chiffon pie is not like a regular, like dense baked pumpkin pie, which I kind of like those too, but this is like some next level thing. And it's not where the filling is baked. So usually it'll have like a graham cracker or ginger snap crust. And then the filling is like cooked, but it's like very aerated. And my mom's recipe for it is like mega not vegan. Like there's so many eggs,
Of course,
and all of this like butter and stuff. I think maybe there's also gelatin in hers. But my wife veganized it over years, like lots of trial and error, and it's really good. And like I grew up, like my birthday is in March, and I'd be like, oh, I want pumpkin pie for like my birthday cake. And then like
nice.
it would be like summertime and my mom would be like, oh, what should I make for the picnic? And I'm like, make that pumpkin pie. It's definitely, I'm way more of like a pies and custards dessert
Okay.
than I am like cakes or even donuts and stuff. I mean, it's an occupational hazard that if you're around donuts enough, you do eventually come to really love and hate them at the same time.
Oh, I can only imagine. Even when I make them in small batches here, I'm like, okay, now they're in my house. I've got to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And everyone, this sweets chapter, the dessert specifically, there's so much in here along with that pumpkin pie. We've got tarts and Pop-Tarts and Pop Hearts, 3 different variations, including strawberry rhubarb, my favorite combination, peanut butter chocolate, and lavender raspberry. I'll have to make the lavender raspberry for my husband. It's like 2 of his favorite flavors. There's also gooey salted caramel pecan turtle bars, mini peanut butter chocolate cheesecakes, rum glazed pecan cookies, and there's also some raw raspberry chocolate fudge tart and raw lemon blueberry cheesecakes in there, just to name a few. If you have a sweet tooth, this book has you covered, including, drumroll, donuts. Yes, a dedicated chapter for donuts. Everyone, if you had the privilege of enjoying Cinnamon Snail, you know these donuts are where it's at. I would go and be like, oh, I'm going to get a donut. And of course I would get several for later or to give to people. You give a nice how-to on making the perfect donut here and dough rising, which is so helpful. And you also get into the art of playing dress up with glazes and toppings. You must have a favorite donut in here. So which one is it?
All right. So first of all, I'm definitely like a fritter dude all the way.
All right.
And one of my favorite donut places in the whole country is Ronald's Donuts in Las Vegas. I don't know.
Yes, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Dope. And it's like got that old school donut vibe, like, and they're cheap and
yep.
And
you got to get there because they go too. Like
yeah.
they got to. So everyone listening, it's in Vegas, right?
It's that and this place. What's it called? Pancho's Vegan Tacos, I think it's called. That opened a couple years ago. Those are like the only redeeming parts of Las Vegas that I'm aware of.
I mean, I might be in agreement, but
I'm about getting a layover there or whatever if I get to eat Ronald's Donuts.
Yeah, for sure.
But the first time me and my wife went there, we had bought a one of those like VW Vanagon like camper vans off of eBay, really cheap, and we were gonna like drive it back to the East Coast from Las Vegas. And we looked it up and we were like, oh, this place, like half of their donuts are vegan. Let's go check it out. So we got like 20 different donuts or something. And my wife was like, which one do you want to start with first? And I looked at their fritter and I was like, oh, this thing is like up looking. Like
it's for
it
real.
actually looks like gross. Like barfed in the deep fryer. So, like it doesn't look good. I was like, let's try this because if this is good, like this whole thing's gonna be crazy good.
Yeah.
Man, that apple fritter is like life-changingly good.
Yeah.
So I've like a little bit styled my fritters off of theirs. I can't, to be honest, like though mine, maybe are made with like kind of more quality ingredients, I think theirs are really, really good. Like,
yeah,
I'll say that theirs are better than mine. So I really, there's a lavender pear fritter in this book that's really good. Of course, the other thing that's like always been super popular that we started making a few years in are these vanilla bourbon creme brulee donuts that we want to do like awards for and stuff. And yeah, people really, really love them. They're like, they've got this like custardy filling with a little bit of bourbon and vanilla in them, but then they get like torched on the top to have that like crunchy, creme brulee topping. So yeah,
I love it.
That's kind of a favorite. But yeah, over the years, I've come to really have a much greater appreciation for cake style donuts. There's like the two different types of donuts. Like generally, there's the ones that are leavened with yeast and the ones that are leavened with baking soda and baking powder that have that more cakey, like old-fashioned donut style. And I've come to really prefer those over the years that, to raise donuts when they're made well. So yeah, there's some good recipes for those also in this book. There's like a roasted chestnut cake donut that has a chamomile glaze, and that's quite good.
Delicious. Yeah, my eyes were on that vanilla bourbon creme brulee donut and the chocolate ganache stuffed s'mores donut. My eyes are on that. Now, I remember going to the truck and either I am making this up or you will know what I'm talking about, but there was a strange word you would say at the window. I'm going to try and say it even though I can't remember the actual word anymore, but these are the sounds that are going to come out of my mouth. It was like Norbert Weber something rather.
Yeah. So we had
so I'm not crazy. This was a thing.
Oh yeah. We had all these like, I had some like weird names for some stuff that we were serving. And there was this one donut that like, probably if I had just called it what it was like obviously more appetizing because it was this like candied like bourbon hazelnut ganache stuffed donut with like white chocolate glaze and this streusel topping that also included like ground chocolate cookies in it. And I mean, that sounds really good, but instead of like being sensible and just like calling it that, I was like, I'm gonna name it after this voicemail recording
right.
And then somebody had like, it was this guy called, his name was Norm Burweiler, and he had a company called Burweiler Hydrofab, and he had left a message on my friend's answering machine that was like, hey, Norm Burweiler Hydrofab, just calling you back. I was like, yo, that's why I'm just going to call this donut, because it's so like weird sounding. So I called it the Norbert Weiber Hydrofab donut. And,
that's right. Okay, I wasn't out of my mind then. I was trying to talk to my husband about it because I swore he was with me, and we both were like, "Oh," and he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I was like, "How can you forget?" Well, we're closing the book out. We've got the saucy stuff chapter. We are a saucy household over here, so we can appreciate the art of sauce. What are some sauces from this chapter that were either standards at the Cinnamon Snail and or are also staples in your home on a regular basis?
Well, there's this black sesame gomasio that's like toasted black sesame seeds and Chinese 5-spice powder and some sesame oil. And they all get like ground up. And that was something that I made just for the gochujang burger. But I ended up using it like it's just a nice, like tasty, nutty garnish for a lot of different things. Like in place of like just adding salt, I always kind of like, whenever I can, and you can kind of notice it when you look through the recipes in this book. Whenever I can, like to impart salinity, like saltiness in something, I always try to like opt for like a way to do it with more flavor rather than just
Nice.
using plain salt. And so yeah, this is like one way you can do that. Like rather than just like salting some roasted veggies, you can throw something like this on it and it just like adds a whole other level of flavor to it.
Awesome.
Also there's like the pine nut butter in this chapter that goes like on those pancakes I mentioned. I think we also used to put them on these like blue corn pancakes, which were probably one of the menu items that lasted. I think that was like one of the things that was on the menu when I opened, and it was like remained on the menu forever because it was really fun. And it's just a pancake that has like part of the batter has like blue corn flour in it. And it gets served with maple syrup and this pine nut butter. And yeah, it's just really good to have like, instead of just like plain earth balance on something,
Right.
have something again that just has some more flavor and dynamic to it. So yeah.
I always love having staples around from either my stuff or the cookbooks just because I know what I put in them, so it's nice. And y'all don't snooze on the sauces. Everyone from ginger stout syrup and red wine syrup to flavored mayonnaise, tapenades, and salsas, Adam has you covered. And that is Street Vegan, recipes and dispatches from the Cinnamon Snail Truck. Adam, are you ready for your baker's dozen of rapid fire
let's
questions?
do it. Come on.
Yes.
Let's go.
He came ready. He's
Are
been
you
waiting.
ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Here we go. Number one. What was the most difficult area to park the truck in NYC?
Midtown on the east side. No question. Yeah.
Food on a skewer or a tiny spoon?
Eat with your hands.
There you go. Favorite kitchen tool?
What's that? Favorite kitchen tool?
Favorite kitchen tool.
Ooh, I like a good knife. I really do like a good knife. It's a treat. But
you gotta have it.
You can also make terrible food with a good knife and like wonderful food with a shitty knife. So it's really not about like the equipment. It's about like how much love you put in the food.
Yes. What is your favorite category of food to teach?
Ooh. I think like holiday foods, especially like indulgent holiday foods. Like I love when it's like Super Bowl time and like I don't give a shit about the Super Bowl, but like that's all fun food, that like comfort foodie type of stuff.
Yeah, me too. Tofu, tempeh, or seitan?
For personal use, I'm about tempeh. I do really like tempeh a lot. We do eat a good amount of tofu in this house. My wife loves tofu. I barely eat seitan, and when I do, like, I really like to experiment with like different ways of making it and trying to make it like more flavorful and more like nutritionally well-rounded. Because I'm not just trying to eat like a wad of like moist like a wheat gluten or something.
Yes, I hear you. What is something that made you smile today?
So I it's my doggy. We rescued this dog like
I wondered if that's what that was.
Yeah, we rescued this dog. He was gonna be put to sleep like Christmas Eve, and he's a freaking sweetie. He's got like little pink spots on his lips for me to kiss, and he's just a good boy.
Oh, I love it.
That guy made me smile.
Yes, mine did too. Socks in the house or barefoot?
Oh, barefoot all the way. Like I don't even know where my socks are. Like I've worn them a couple times since the pandemic started, but it's
right.
Yeah.
Favorite spice to cook with?
Oh, come on now. How you decide that? So I don't know if you know about this dude. He ate an airplane. You know about that guy? Ate the airplane?
No.
Michael Lotito. You can look him up on wikipedia.com.
Okay.
He ate a whole airplane. No, I'm not joking about some small model airplane. Dude ate a whole goddamn airplane. So I'm going to say like you just grind up an airplane into a dust, and I would.
What?
That's probably my number one, my go-to right from if you want to have a delicious porridge or oatmeal treat, you just sprinkle on that ground up Cessna airplane for your health and wellness.
I mean, it worked well for him. Yeah. So
you didn't die from eating the airplane.
No. Favorite vegetable and why?
Ooh, I do really love Brussels sprouts. I love them.
Yeah, delicious.
They're up there. Why? I don't know why anybody
'Cause they're
likes
great.
anything. It's a hard thing, but I'll tell you who makes the best Brussels sprouts if you want to know who makes the
Yes.
best Brussels sprouts.
Do tell.
Is Tannerine in Brooklyn. Oh
Okay.
my gosh. They make some incredible fucking food.
I'm here for
They're
it.
probably my favorite restaurant in New York City.
All right.
Tannerine. It's Palestinian food, and they do like a fried Brussels sprouts thing with tahini, and it's super
I
real.
mean, already that sounds delicious. I
Yeah.
love it. Well, what's a must in your morning routine?
Practicing yoga and
Nice.
for meditation.
Pancakes or waffles?
Yerba mate. That's what it is.
What is that?
It's this beverage from Argentina.
Oh, but that's not a pancake or a waffle.
I didn't say it was. It's the winner of the Pancake versus Waffles University.
There you go. There you go. I got a real stupid one for you now. If you were a potato, which way would you like to be prepared?
Samosa.
There you go. And you said your favorite vegan restaurant, I think in Brooklyn it was, you said. But
It's not a vegan restaurant. It's just my favorite restaurant. But they have a huge amount of vegan stuff on their menu. And,
I love that.
And it's really good. And it's like a family-run business. And it's not pretentious. And it's such fresh freaking food. Like everything is flavorful, fresh, and like veggie based. It's not like a lot of like white flour you're eating. But you didn't get to ask your question. So what's your...
Oh, no. Well, I was going to venture into that's good. It wasn't a vegan restaurant because my last question is what's your favorite vegan restaurant or one that you frequent often?
Well, my favorite vegan restaurant went out of business, and it was Land Cafe on 6th Street in New York City. Okay. It was like a vegan Vietnamese place. Also like a family-run thing, like mom and dad working in the kitchen together.
Yeah.
It really had a nice vibe. I also really loved Horizons, what was like the previous incarnation of the people who run veg. You know, that like really inspired me. I really love Taim in New York City, but they stupidly started serving chickens to people. Yeah, they make a good falafel, like next tier level falafel. It's really good.
That's good. Now we got some suggestions, and that is your rapid fire round. Last question of the day here. Sort of a book brag. What's something with this book that you're most proud of?
Well, at the time, there was like nowhere you could find anything about vegan donuts. Like we really had to figure that out through trial and error for years and continue to like try to improve on it. And yeah, at the time, there were like hardly any books that even had donut recipes to begin with, let alone vegan donut recipes. So that was something that was like, I feel like kind of put that book on the map as like something a little bit innovative and different.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Well, listen, that's it. Where can people find you? What's the best website and social media for people to find you?
So you guys know Snopes.com. I'm on Snopes.com. You guys know that Expedia.com?
Stupid.
You can find me online at .com. But for real, Snopes.com is probably the best.
For real. Okay. All right. Well, listen, everybody, go out and get yourself a copy of Street Vegan Recipes and Dispatches from the Cinnamon Snail Truck and check out Adam online and take a class from him at Snopes.com. And you won't regret it, I promise. What a great book for home cooks to level up a little and really learn about new flavors and techniques. Adam, thank you for this fantastic contribution into the cookbook landscape. We are so grateful, and thank you for taking the time to hang with me today.
It's been marvelous to be dusting a move with you, my love. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd be so grateful if you would rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really does help us.
Yes, thank you so much. And don't forget to check out keeponcookin.com for all of the latest in recipes and Keep On Cookin' updates. This has been a Muzzy Cat production.